is Ashley Adamson-Edwards, 4.1 Ethical, Legal and Health and Safety Issues in Research. So we'll start off with the key terms and background of research. So first we have ethical. The term of ethical is often used to a high degree in research and is used to describe whether or not the action of an individual is right or wrong. More specifically, the ethics of an individual in research, whether they are a researcher or participant, is the moral principles that governs their behaviour or how they conduct an activity. For example, if someone had what is deemed to be as good or strong ethics, they might have respect for another person like a participant. Therefore, it's vital in research. That researcher is trained on how to portray the correct ethics in order to perform appropriate and mostly safe actions towards the participant. Following on from this, we have the term of legal. Now, another key term which highly relates to research is legal, and according to Merriam-Webster dictionary, the term legal can be defined as a deriving authority from or founded on law, therefore meaning that if someone is described as legal, it's usually working within the boundaries of what is known as civil law. This relates to research due to the fact that all research carried out must also be within these boundaries. For example, it is a legal requirement for a researcher to be granted ethical clearance prior to performing any form of research. However, if a legal requirement wasn't carried out, then often the consequences are more extreme, either perhaps prison sentences or could be becoming involved. And finally, the more complex and possibly more important term in terms of safety is health and safety. Through a series of regulations and procedures, the term health and safety intends to ensure the prevention of accident or injury in the workplace or other public environments. For example, a health and safety procedure, which will later be touched on, is the procedure of having an easily accessible first aid kit within the location of the conducted research, therefore ensuring the safety of everyone involved within the study. However, in terms of the workplace, in 1974 there was an official act established known as the Health and Safety Work Act. This act states that it is the duty of every employer, so far as reasonably participle, to ensure the health, safety and welfare work of all employees, also including students. This statement means that, much like in research, every organisation that hires someone must follow the required amount of procedures and fund sufficient amounts of money in order to ensure safe health and safety and welfare of their workers. However, it is also the responsibility of every employee while at work to take reasonable care of themselves and other persons who may be affected by their acts or omissions at work. For example, an employee must take measures like indicating perhaps the cleaners to clean some water on the floor to prevent a slip, or during research where a researcher must ensure the safety of another researcher during a study. This could be through making sure the equipment being used is safe and won't harm them in any way. However, in terms of brief historical context, during the 20th century there was an unfortunate occurrence where a ruthless regime developed under the control of Nazi Germany Party. During the regime, the Nazis started to engage in a series of research studies to develop their knowledge on how they could improve and maintain the superiority of their nation. However, the research that was carried out by the Nazis was extremely unethical and followed no guidelines in terms of maintaining the safety of everyone involved, care and welfare. But due to the fact before 1947 there was no accepted code of conduct that a researcher was legally required to carry out, and therefore at the time the Nazis got away with experiments such as freezing humans, experiments with poison and much more. Due to this, in 1947, the Nuremberg Code was created, which consisted of 10 main points that a researcher must carry out for a study to ensure welfare, safety and care of everyone involved. Firstly, the participant is required to provide consent to every piece of content involved in the study. This therefore provides the capacity for the research to go ahead and gives the right idea that the participant hasn't been forced into the study like many of the Nazi victims. Following on from this, the research carried out must be done in order to further the good of society as opposed to the militaristic values that the Nazi experiments were done under. Thirdly, animal research must be carried out prior to research on humans to give detailed information on what the research causes to a living organism, therefore preventing the possible damage on human life and expanding the knowledge that the researcher has before the study takes place to give them more familiarization on how to efficiently perform. Also, the experiment must be conducted so that all injuries of physical harm is prevented, along with an experiment not being able to be carried out uh, if there's previous knowledge of it causing death or illness. In overview, the Nuremberg Code acts as a series of protocols that try and right the wrongs made by the Nazis to also ensure that an individual's rights and safeties aren't violated. Following from this, the declaration of the Nuremberg Code didn't develop sufficient procedures regarding the ethical needs of an individual to fit the common rights that every person has under most governments. Therefore, in 1964, the World Medical Association set up a series of ethical principles for research to be carried out and therefore conducted on human participants. This is called the Helsinki Declaration. For example, one of these principles is the requirement of the participants to know the risks of the study that the study might have on them. For example, in a later mentioned scenario 3, the researcher failed to indicate to the participant that one of the risks of the oil of finistus is a tripping hazard. Therefore, the Helsinki principle wasn't carried out due to this researcher may be liable to legal action. Finally, the basis organisation role and code. Whereas amongst the different research that takes place across the country, there are often different organisations which need to be in place depending on the different areas of research. Therefore, in terms of sports science, the organisation and its bases plays a significant role and provides a well-executed code. This code is produced for sports science practitioners and researchers, which outlines ethical and legal issues along with health and safety guidelines, therefore playing a vital role in the progression of sports science research, whilst at the same time ensuring the well-being of all sports scientists, researchers during studies. To start this assignment, we're going to be looking at three scenarios. Firstly, scenario 1. This consists of following a BSc degree in sports science. You're an intern at Brighton University and you have been asked to do a body fat baseline test of the young male and female aspiring British gymnast. You arrange a half-day visit and decide to measure body fat, hydro densitometry, and skin fold measures. The gymnasts have given their coach a generic consent form signed by parents, giving them permission to be on the trip. When they arrive, you tell them they have to wear the swimwear in the lab in order to firstly do the skin fold measures and then to conduct the hydrodensitometry in the bath. Some are reluctant to do this openly in the lab, but you insist this is necessary to be time efficient and get through the testing. As the gymnast finishes each test, you write each body fat score on the whiteboard so the coach can take a photo of the results to take away at the end. However, we also need to evaluate this scenario. So firstly, whilst evaluating the first scenario provided, it was indicated the risk assessment had been carried out for the participants and the researchers prior to the research which took place. Therefore, the fact that no risk assessment was indicated to be carried out acts as a piece of poor practice conducted by the researcher, and consequently other issues may arise due to it. However, the reason for this being an issue is due to the importance that risk assessment has whilst research is taking place. A risk assessment consists of 5 aspects, which should be considered before any form of research is carried out, which was established by the HSE in 1999. Firstly, the hazards of a scenario must be identified. For example, scenario 1 most likely consists of many different hazards due to the complexity of the research using the hydrodensitometry bath. This could be possible slippery floor, which could lead to perhaps serious injuries. Therefore, one of the hazards identified would be a slippery floor due to the bath. Secondly, the risk assessment also needs to have stated who is at risk from each and every one of the hazards identified previously. For example, both researcher and participant will be affected by the possible slippery floor due to the involvement both of them have around the bath area. Additionally, the hazard then needs to be evaluated in order for the control measures to be also included in the assessment. Therefore, both researchers and the participant stand at an increased chance of hazards not affecting their safety, and therefore the risk is prevented. Following on from this, the rating on 2 aspects are given, which are how serious the risk would be if the hazard occurred, which is the likelihood, and how serious the impact of the hazard occurring, which is the severity of the hazard. These 2 aspects are then rated out of 3, and if one of the scores from any of the hazards, which is 6 when both multiplied together, then the research cannot go ahead. However, if after this rating is managed to be reduced, then the research can continue. Finally, so the control measures in order to stop the hazard as they're carried out, the risk assessment must also indicate what actions are necessary. For example, checking that every participant is wearing the correct clothing so that the hazard of perhaps injuries from generally being worn. Additionally, the risk assessment is consistently updated so that new issues that need research researchers need to be aware of are put in place to be controlled. Also, with experience, the person carrying out the research will notice different things that need to be in place for research to go ahead. With the risk assessment, this is ensured. Consequently, both researcher and participant have an increased chance of remaining safe from many hazards during the research. This is going to be the end of video 1. However, it's not going to be the end of video 1, sorry. However, the fact that no risk assessment has been indicated to be carried out has not only increased the chance of both researcher and participant being at risk of harm, but also caused the researcher to be liable for them. Therefore, the researcher would possibly have the ethical clearance removed due to the basis process. However, more specifically, in this case, the participant may be injured in scenario 1 due to perhaps hazard like the slippery fall and not being previously assessed, whereas if the measurements were put in place due to a risk assessment prior to this research, the risk of the gymnast potentially affecting the career would be significantly decreased. This is also an example of physical harm to the participant, which is a consequence of working unethically, illegally, or within the HNS without working in the HNS expectation with health and safety. So these can be things such as pulled muscle or any type of injury that causes physical damage. In the future, I would recommend that the risk assessment should be carried out at the researcher's best degree so that safety is maximised for everyone involved, and in this case, Brighton University remains professional and unliable for these kind of issues. Additionally, due to the high densitometry being an extremely complex piece of equipment, the risk assessment would need to be very detailed, and therefore, I would recommend that a lot of the time is put into the future assessments. More specifically, perhaps previous practice tests could be ran without the participants so that the researcher involved can develop a better idea of what issues may arise, consequently increasing the chance of less consequences occurring, which may bring harm to the participant, researcher and organisation behind the research. Additionally, I've also created a risk assessment that I would recommend would be used, which is this here. Also, we've got the slippery floor from the hydro bath. This would affect the researcher and participant, so this needs to be monitored and if possible, it needs to be mopped up or taken care of. This develops a risk rating of 2, which is okay to go ahead, and the actions necessary are produce a check of the place before the study is taking place, and plan for providing a safe way of conducting the study without it being affected by this hazard. This will be the end of video 1.